I think you have touched in those 20 minutes on a vast number of issues which will probably come up in various moments during our discussion with the panelists. You said that you gave a kind of historical overview, but underlined that the future is about online education without any doubt, but that having face-to-face connections or teaching will remain, that the development is fast, but the progress is slow, and that the universities are seeking a bit in what direction, how they can embark on that, and how they can develop a vision and fill the vacuum and search what are the possibilities to start, and that in the end we do not have any excuse because technology is there to support teaching and learning. So having said that, I would like to open the floor for discussions for Jeff on that stage so that we can then move on later on to the practical examples given by our panelists. So, Jean-Michel?
Jeff, it's a clarification question and a question. You said that universities investing could reach this ideal or target. What do you mean by investing? Money, efforts, mental awareness, etc.?
All of those. I mean, despite, I think, what many governments would like to see, and despite the conversations I have with the European Commission, who always say everything must be cost neutral, in other words, don't ask for money. You know, the first thing they say is, when you write a report, don't ask for more money. Change is going to cost money. And so, one way or another, either, to my mind, universities have to be free to earn money to invest in their own futures, or if governments are not prepared to allow them to move into that free market state, government itself needs to invest funding into universities against sensible business plans and with proper evaluation, and that's the critical bit. But one way or the other, one's going to have to find the time, the capacity, and the expertise to learn from others, to do new experimentation, and to tackle some of those challenges that I have sitting there. And of course, effort is money. People time is money. Generating vision is money. Ultimately, it comes back to that.
Thank you, Jeff. That was really interesting. I think I have a good understanding of what the digital university looks like from your presentation, but what I'm not sure of is what the roles of the different people at that institution are. So what is the faculty role? What is the instructional designer role? Is the University of 2025 a public institution, or is it a public-private partnership? Do courses look the same way? Do departments look the same way? Can you, I guess, answer some of those questions for me?
Yes, I can and I can't. And the reason why I can't is that I think that it's very difficult to set a detailed plan that runs over 10 years, for a start. And the second is that universities, importantly, many of them have a high degree of internal devolution of authority to individual schools or faculties to shape things at the speed and the way that they wish to go. And so, for instance, one of our most conservative in many ways faculties, which was medicine, was the earliest into online learning. And some of our most scientifically innovative faculties were the slowest in. And so as a consequence, as you move forward, those faculties, those academic schools, will have to work out within this general framework of the direction in which we're traveling. It's up to them in their planning processes to say how they will engage with making progress towards this vision. In other words, you don't say to them, you will do these things. You say, this is the outcome we're looking for. You tell me how you how you would like to get there. And it's the same model that we've applied, for instance, to widening participation to bring in more disadvantaged students. We haven't necessarily said to people, you will do it this way. We have said, this is what we wish to achieve. You tell us how best to get there for you. So we allow diversity in it, and some parts of the university, for instance, have adopted a rather heavily structured form and said our courses should all look like this, and in other parts of the university they've adopted a more liberal form in which they've allowed individual academic to choose exactly how to do things. And from my perspective as a university, I expect to see that variation and variability as long as the pattern is moving in the direction in which we have decided strategically to go. Does that make sense?
A little bit on what George now said. So in a way, to me, what you are telling about Edinburgh is a fairy tale for a lot of other universities. It's really the kind of where perhaps a lot of universities would love to go, but they don't manage. And somehow there must be a recipe. There must be something. Is it your enthusiasm? What is it really that you think makes? Because you said you take it as one example of many, but I don't think that's actually the case. I think it's a quite exceptional example. So, what is it which was different? And another question, whether you could say something, probably I don't know whether for the first time, but there is huge commercial interests, of course, around all of this onlineization and a lot of technology firms, and how, in your opinion, how universities should deal with these pressures also, no? That there's a lot of companies who want to sell something, and how they should approach that problem more.
There's two questions in that, but I'll let me unpick it. I think that the simple answer to the first question, which is how have some universities managed to move substantially down a transformation road? Actually, it doesn't really matter whether it's about online, it's just transforming themselves from being one kind of thing to another kind of thing, which may or may not be online. It comes down to the vision and the capabilities of the senior management team, to my mind. Because I think all universities recruit phenomenal academic staff. And the extent to which they are able to exercise the abilities and the vision that they've got is very dependent upon whether they have strong leadership that enables them to exercise that and move forward, or whether it suppresses them and forces them into a model, which is why I said devolved matters a lot to us. So it's the strength and the vision of senior management to take funding and to release effort to enable the building of high-quality education by the faculty going forward. And without that, you can forget it. Okay, so that's really important. The world is going to change around us really fast and keep changing. And so universities have actually got somewhere, and this may in some countries be down to governments to make sure that leadership development is strong. And I know it varies a lot from country to country as to whether educational leadership development for leadership of universities is strong or not. But you require a cadre of people leading higher education who are able to cope with all of the opportunities that exist, decide which ones to go for and which not to go for, or which to go for a lot and which to go for a little, and then stick to that vision. So I have a strong belief that without really good academic leadership, you do not move forward. I mean, that's a terribly top-down managerial, it's a suit. I've got it on, it's a suit view. But it's not because it tells faculty and academics what to do, it's because it supports and enables them to do the things that they are actually inventing and making it part of that vision going forward.
Ismail?
Yes, it's going to seem that I'm playing the devil's advocate, but I promise that I'm utterly earnest here. You raised or you put some words like e-supervision or e-assessment, mobility, etc., which I totally subscribe. But if we blur how to say that, the territorial distribution of students, does that affect the governance and financing of at least public universities? So if instead of having some universities, we have a mesh of educators and learners, do we have to change accordingly the governance? For instance, do we need the president, a single, like University of the UK? We need that. We need to change how universities are led or are government, how they are financed. Do you think that we need to change on that?
Well, I think that the only change that you need, and that some universities clearly lack, is what I've just said, which is strong leadership, and actually that leadership includes transparent and inclusive governance, and governance in the sense of how you make decisions and how you ensure that you are all in agreement about where you're going. So strong and transparent governance is really important. I don't think that there's a single way of doing that, but that governance does need to include your student body. So students need to be involved in that process. And as you have students who are at a distance from you, they need to be included in that alongside the students who are resident on your campuses. So you do have to rethink that. And we've had to rethink that in terms of our own student population. You mustn't forget these 3,000 people, partly because they're paying, probably 15,000 euros for a master's degree, maybe more. But they are just as important learners as the learners on campus. So your governance processes do need to think more widely, and actually also as you bring in, as you yourself have said, as you bring in people from outside the higher education sector and their experience into your programs, you also need to think about including in your governance process those people for whom they work and those sectors that lie outside. So I think this is about a broadening of management and a broadening of governance that you actually require, so that you're really engaging with the modern world. And in a sense, the ivory tower model is over your shoulder and gone.
I would like to ask a very, very small question. You mentioned in your speech about the fact that you're thinking of moving now to online courses for PhD students. So does that mean that you will have to, not to start from scratch, but that you can build on what you have learned, but since it is a different target group and different expectations may be there, I was wondering how you're going to tackle that, how you're going to prepare for that?
Well, some of it... When we looked at it, I led a group within the university at which we assessed how we would go about offering doctorates at a distance. And the reason why we decided to think about doctorates at a distance was partly because it was logical, because you already have master's students, and so why not have doctorates? But also because that population of master's students we have online are almost 100% working adults, full-time working adults. Okay? They study part-time with us. They are a different population to our on-campus students. And some of them were beginning to say, now can I do a PhD? And it would be crazy if you said to them, well, you were able to do a master's degree living anywhere you liked in the world, but actually when you want to do a PhD, we're now saying you must come and live in Edinburgh. So there was no logic to it. I mean, part of a doctorate's got two parts of it from our perspective. One of it is the research methodologies and training part of it, and that part of it can be done online just in the same way as you do master's degrees. Indeed, actually, the modules are probably the same. And then the question is how do you do your research and your writing up of the thesis? Actually, when we looked at what happened in our university, and I suspect you would find this was true in many European universities, when we looked at it, about half our PhD students were basically not really resident in Edinburgh anyway, because they went off and did field work, or they were working part-time, and they just actually weren't really there in that classical model that you have in your head of them sitting in a study and working. So actually it wasn't such a big leap, because our faculty were already supporting those students at a distance and doing it routinely, and everybody just said, yeah, so what's the problem? So selecting them will be difficult. So the selection process will actually be the part that we will put most effort into, because we think that after that, the other parts of it will follow. But again, as I said, it's a serious experiment. We are testing this across the university in different places to make sure that we can understand how it would work before we blow it to scale.
Thank you. And that, of course, means also that for PhD students who do not come from the University of Edinburgh and who do not have had this previous experience with online, that's a big step then for them, or a different experience in any way.
But they may have an MSc from Open University.
Yeah, they may.
Catalonia.
Yeah, but not everybody maybe. Anyway, thank you very much for that.